Hi everyone, welcome back to Let's Talk with Tiff. I'm Tiffanie, and I want to thank you for joining me for another episode. I also want to remind you guys to go ahead and please like and subscribe to my channel. I'm building a community here and I'd love all of your support. So let's get into the topic, you guys. As promised, I am going to talk about surrender. It's a very big topic. We need to talk about it. If you haven't heard or listened to or watched my last two episodes on the mind, learning, understanding the mind, and also learning and understanding the spirit, go ahead, pause this video, and go back and watch those first before you proceed and listen to this one on surrender. It will make the most sense for you guys if you take in the understanding of the mind and the spirit, so you have an idea of where we're going, and then we get into surrender together. Now, if you have watched it, awesome. Let's keep going. We have to continue unpacking. And this topic, you guys, it's big. It's one of my favorite to talk about because surrender is the most, probably one of, it's in the top 3 important pieces when you are pursuing God. There really is no pursuit of God if you don't have the surrender piece. It has to be in motion. And it took me a long time to really wrap my head around this concept. What is surrender, right? So I'm going to ask you guys today, what do you believe surrender is? Have you heard this word? Does this sound like a word you've heard in spirituality? Is this something you've heard in religion? Is this something you've read? Have you ever thought about what surrender means to you in your life? I can share with you, for myself, the first time I heard surrender was back maybe like 10, 12, 13, 15 years ago, when I first began to enter the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and this word was thrown around. They talked about surrender, okay? It was all about surrendering, and then I began to find spiritual teachers that spoke about surrender as well. And I never quite understood it. It didn't make sense to me exactly. And I thought, surrender? What do you mean? Like, what are you even saying right now? It didn't make sense. However, it didn't stop me from being curious. So I stayed on the path as I continued to learn what surrender was, and to even sit here right now today and speak about it. It's taken me nearly 2 decades of what I call research and entering the rooms of AA and then NA and just reading about it, following others back when I was probably in my later 20s, early through my mid 30s, most of my 30s, I should say, where I followed people that taught about it. And today I've had my own experience. So that's really what I'm going to give away, is my own experience with surrender. And will yours look like mine? Probably not. It will maybe look a little bit different because, again, like I've shared here, God has an experience for all of us, but surrender is absolutely at the heart of it. So I ask you, what does surrender mean to you? I'm going to break down to you what I've learned for myself. So I used to pray to God in ways that were very circumstantial. So life would happen, something would go down, whether it was in my personal life, work, any sort of living, life and living. And I would pray to God to help me, right? That's what I went to God for, because I needed his help. Once I sort of believed that there was God, I was kind of dipping my toe into it, into what I was told, my faith. God is real. And so I would pray to God and I would ask him to help me. And I would try to surrender my situation to him, my circumstance, the relationship. And this might sound familiar to you guys. However, as God and I became closer and I built my relationship with God, I started to understand over the years that surrender at its core is really about turning your life over to God. So when you turn your life over, what does that mean now? It's like, oh boy, I'm turning my life over. Well, I can tell you right now that the mind does not like this behavior, to turn your life over, this thought process, this release. It doesn't like it. And your spirit, you will find, is willing. And I've mentioned before in the last episodes, and I'll briefly touch on it, we become willing when we're in pain, enough pain. When we become curious, it will show up in our life where the willingness to turn it over, turn our life over. So don't be surprised if you go from praying about and surrendering your circumstances to God as He's gently, because God is very gentle. This is how you know it's Him. He will help you move along and start to understand the importance of surrendering life over to Him. Because I have learned that God does not just want to help us with this one situation, no, or this one, relationship problem thing that we're having. No, He's not interested in the one thing. He's interested in the whole package. And so the whole package is all of you. And that really comes down to your life. It's you, it's all your life, it's all encompassing of you. So that's really at the heart of surrender. It's understanding that, it's turning your life over to God. If you turn your life over to God, let's go deeper now. What does that mean? Well, we're starting to visit what it means to turn your life and your will. Okay? So God has a will for you. He has a will for me, for all of us. And the only way that God's will can come alive within us and we can actually start to see it, right? Because the supernatural is happening at every moment. But as you do your walk with God, get closer to Him, you understand, you have discernment over Him, you will start to see God in everything, in all areas of your life. And it really comes alive in the surrender piece, you guys. Turning your life over to Him, it is so important for Him to have His hands in everything. He wants to be a part of your life. God also doesn't push Himself on you. No, God reads and He understands and He feels us at a place of our heart, okay, through the Spirit. And so you'll find as you go deeper in surrender with God, all of this is occurring at the heart. He wants to go into the heart. In order for surrender to even come alive in your life, turning your life over and your will, which means you're going to step into God's will now, right, is all happening at a place of the heart. Maybe you're wondering, well, where is this occurring? Is this a spiritual process? Yes, it is. Absolutely. Are we going through the Spirit because God works spirit to spirit? Yes. However, if you're looking for the location of where it is all taking place, if you had to identify it, it's happening inside of the heart. And we know this because we can tell when people have a good heart. God is all up in there. And how deep it goes, I have really been taught this firsthand with God. There's like little baby surrender in the beginning, and God will help us. He will move us along in the process. And He does it very gently and very lovingly until we get to a place with Him where He knows, okay, it's time to amp it up. And we get tested in a deeper sense, and we will go through things where our surrender is so deep. I'm talking so deep that I like to refer to this as being fair. You're like blind in it. You can't even see in your deep surrender with God when your life is in His hands, you are in God's will. You can't even see your hands in front of you. It's like, that's how blind you are. That's how dark it is, like in the sense, not darkness, but You just can't see anything. You have no real idea of where God is taking you. So one of the key factors in surrender as you move along and get higher in this process with God, He knows everything and you know nothing. Okay? That's the blind piece. So where He takes you, one thing I've learned too is God doesn't check in with us to make sure we're okay with it. He doesn't do that. Surrender, now we have to dive into what it means to have faith, because surrender will, in your journey with God, meet at a point of faith, trust, and belief in God. We really can't have the surrender piece unless we have our faith, we have our trust, and our belief in God. Because why? You will go so deep in your surrender where you are blind and God's not checking in with you to make sure, hey Tiff, I'm gonna go ahead and get up all into this area of your life, and we're gonna kind of shake things up a little, right? Because our faith, you guys, it doesn't grow when things are good. It doesn't grow when we know what's going on. That doesn't require any faith. We know what's happening, right? So God's not gonna check in with us to let us know. But you'll find as you go deeper with God in your surrender where He is growing your faith, literally. God is gonna allow for things to happen, right? Because He's in control and we've turned it over now. And He's gonna allow for things to happen where your mind is gonna potentially go spinning. It's gonna wanna get aggressively involved. Go into thought, go into feeling, take over where you're flooded with emotion. Those are natural occurrences that will take place in the mind. But this is why surrender and having faith and trust, you can't really go deep in your faith with God without having trust. But now I'm going to tell you something. If you're going to have trust in God, where does that come from? Well, where does it come from with anyone? Trusting even from a human to a human perspective to people, that comes by building a relationship. That's how it happens. So if you think that you're going to surrender, right, and have faith, and you're going to trust God, and you believe in God, in theory, that all sounds relatively simple, easy. Okay, yeah, I got it. Well, it doesn't quite work that way. Trusting God, just like you would any person, you're gonna have to invest your time. You give your heart, you give your time, you give the insides of yourself from in here, all the beautiful pieces, to someone, right? To God in this sense. And you make an investment there. That's having a relationship. So that's why, in order to really step into the trusting piece with God, you'll spend a lot of time in your investment, carving out the prayer time, carving out the moments in your day where you're going to invite God in. So when life is happening out there, you don't have to run to a building, to a church, or, however you practice your faith. You just go to God in the moment because He lives inside of us. And you include Him right then, right there. And He's always listening. He's very attentive. He keeps all the records. And this is having a relationship with God, carving out that time. And so will you have your prayer time? Yes. But go a step further, you guys. Bring God into the motion of your life. That's when things really took off for me. And when I stopped judging myself, looking stupid, what will people think? Because sometimes I'm out in the world and I'm talking to God and in front of people. I don't care anymore because I know God, number one, is listening. God cares. And I'm going to be much better off, a much healthier human being because I have taken it to God, brought Him in, and I'm going over it with Him. And so I am in a place now in my surrender where I openly talk to God. And sometimes I've even had people say something and I'm like, oh, I'm just talking to God. He's in my life. And then it's like, oh, okay. And I get kind of a different reactions out there, but it doesn't matter to me anymore because I know God's there. I know God is listening. And sometimes you'll meet people that are also of faith and they'll be like, oh, I totally get it. You know, and people that are not, it may seem a little bit foreign, but you press forward with God. That's what I've learned. And so that's a big piece of this. It's the faith, it's the trust in God, and what you believe. You know, and this goes, now here we are back at the mind, what you believe. The mind is always working to take us out. Sometimes I used to believe this, you guys. I used to believe that when I surrendered and then maybe something was going on in my life where I was not in a good place, right? I would believe that I took my will back. Well, I've learned that that's not the case, actually. That's what the mind will have me believe, but that's not true because surrender happens at a place of the heart. God looks at the heart. So he knows when we mean it. He knows when we're done. He knows when we're tired. He knows when we are in. We're all in. And so God will look at the heart. And because that's where surrender is happening, when life is happening, you know, and our belief system starts to maybe the mind goes and it can get real loud in there. You know, what are we thinking about? What are we feeling? What are our emotions? And this is why it is so important to understand who are you and what is your mind? What is it doing? Because that is not the same thing. And when you surrender and it happens one time at the heart, now we're talking about when life shows up, the circumstance, something goes awry. Typically, God will take us back to old versions of ourself where there's a possible lesson, there's a possible teaching there. He's not doing it so we can think about how, oh, I took my will back. God's mad at me. We've all heard that or said that to ourselves. I think God's mad at me. No, actually, God is showing us. He already knows what we're going to do. He already knows what we're going to act like, say, behave like. He is doing that a lot of the time to show us who we are. Now that we're in our surrender, God is up in our heart. It's happening there, right? We start to gain and build a sense of self-awareness. So when the behavior comes, when whatever it is that we speak comes, okay, our attitude, our thoughts, our feelings, we operate from a sense of self-awareness that's coming from the spirit. Self-awareness is spiritual at the heart of it. It really is. We cannot see ourselves unless we invite God's spirit in. We need that component. It's a must. There's no way around it. You can't think your way into self-awareness. I've already told you that. Or feel your way even, right? Because emotions are strong. And if you're not careful, you will process your emotions in your mind. And don't be surprised if you end up suffering. So, are we human? Yes. Will we have emotions? Absolutely. Now, we can process our emotions with God in the heart. And what does that look like? Let's look at that for a minute. When you have an emotion and something is happening and you go to the heart with God to process it, you start to see the emotion. Oh, it's visiting me. It's here, right? Whatever it is. Anger is here. Sadness is here. It's visiting me. I am not sad, but sadness is running through me. It's running through my mind. It could be running through my body. Pay attention to these things because you are not that. It is visiting. You have a visitor. It's visiting again. It's also going to be on its way out. Okay? Feelings and emotions, they don't last forever. They can be paralyzing. They can feel like quicksand if we're not careful. And if we live in free will, don't be surprised. But when you surrender and you turn your life over to God, and you're in God's will and you do it at a place of the heart, right? Through the Spirit, these things can become visitors, and God will allow for them sometimes. So we can see ourselves through self-awareness, right? With Him. And we understand, what is it here to teach me? What is it here to show me? What am I here to learn? And so I see emotions today as visitors, okay? And that's all they are, because I know 100% I gave God my life. There's no mistake about that. So if something shows up for me today, I know it's not because I took my will back. I know it's because God is with me. He's got something for me to learn, so I better pay attention, right? We're back in this massive awareness piece. That's what will end up happening in surrender, you guys. God wants us to focus now. Take this in, okay? When life happens, it's hard. We don't go to God when we're good necessarily. You want to include Him in all things, but the human condition typically will reach out to God when it's suffering, struggling, hardship, the pain, trauma, and then it might reach out to God. But see, life will happen, and rather than going through your life and you take whatever it is to God, the circumstance, turn your life over, right, to God. And now here's the concept. Take this one in. God wants you to focus on one thing, Him. That's it. Simple. Just focus your energy, keep your thoughts, your feelings, focus on God. Focus your time on God. Focus on one thing, okay? Be still and know that I am God. Don't do or say anything most of the time. You need to learn how to wait on God, okay? The human mind does not like that. So in the beginning, this is very hard. However, you will build strength from within because He's gonna help you. And you learn how to be still with God, sit in it with God, okay? And as you learn this, you will focus on God while He focuses, take it in, ready, on everything else. God is focusing on the problem. God is focusing on the sadness. God is focusing on the argument you had. God is focusing on the division within the family. You focus on Him. He focuses on everything that's going on, okay? I always think of it like this. Here's a visual for you. Imagine life is like the tornado. Okay, that's life. It's happening, spinning, it's out of control sometimes. It's hard, it's painful, it's confusing. That's just life. But in the eye of the tornado is you and God. Your focus is right there. I'm talking laser focus, people. Okay, you don't take your focus off of God. And as long as you do that, you will remain still. This is the peace that will come over you. It's still happening, the life thing. However, your peace with God, as He focuses on everything else, it's within you. That took me a long time. It doesn't happen all at once, but I can tell you that through surrender, God is very patient. He's willing to help you, and He will guide you through the process. So focusing on Him is extremely important. Now, I want to remind you guys, since we went over the mind, I want to make a couple of connections with you. So through the mind, I have learned is free will. Okay, this is a big thing to understand. So you will see through behavior, how you speak, defense mechanisms, attitude, the way you think, self-centeredness or not, right? The way you think, how you feel, and where you process your emotions. This is all free will related and connected to the mind. God's will, which I taught you, now we're back in spirit, which we went over that. The spirit is willing. The spirit is love. The Spirit wants connection. The Spirit doesn't want the last word. The Spirit is full of heart, where you can trust, all in the Spirit. These traits, these character traits, right? If you look at them both, which is why you should go back and watch the other videos, you can see the difference. Free will versus God's will. So don't think of this necessarily from the perspective of like religion, okay? No. I'm actually speaking of this in terms of no religion. This is not related to religion at all. All of this is leading you toward consciousness, which I've talked about. This is consciousness through God, which is all centered around truth. There's no rules here. There's no rituals here. There's not even necessarily order to this, okay? That you do this to get that. Order, yes, God keeps the order. God has order, but you're not in a conditioning of order, okay? I have taught people, if your spirituality or your religion even offers you a sense of doing this to get that, right? There could be a conditioning component in there, okay? It looks for order in order to know the next step. Now, God, through surrender, that's predictable, what I just said. Those things can be very predictable. You know what's happening. You know the things that you're supposed to do. There's a massive conditioning piece there. With God, through surrender, it's unpredictable. You actually know nothing. He knows everything. You are just there. I like to say sometimes, I even tell him, I say, God, I'm just here hanging on to my chair by threads, okay? And most of the time in surrender, you guys, as you grow, you will find that that's it. That's what you're doing. That's growth. That's the development piece. We are just hanging on most of the time, all the time, because he's growing us. He's developing us. He's transforming us, transcending us into the consciousness, into the truth, into understanding what is real and what is made up by man. Okay, this is the enlightenment, right? Learning how to process the world. We're learning how to be in this world because, yes, we live here on earth, but we are not going to be of this world, okay? Now, I like to say, we don't have to wait till we're dead to become conscious. You will become conscious on the other side, that's for sure, because spirit operates in truth. The spiritual realm is truth with God, which is consciousness. However, you don't need to wait till you're dead to get this. You could have it now in the body on earth. Because why? And I'm going to get into this too. This is a whole episode within itself. Because we are beyond the body. We are spirits. And you have to remember that. So that's why it was so important in the last episodes that I really had to drive it in here. Everything comes down to a choice. We get choices on where we want to operate from. You'll find this as you walk with God and you surrender, okay, not your circumstance, but your life. And you turn it over to him and you put all your faith, all your trust, and all your belief system into him. And you know nothing that's going on. You will do this blindly, know nothing. And you'll feel like you're gonna not make it, basically. But you will, because that's the growth part and the development. And you're gonna come out of whatever he's got for you, because God works by the season, you guys. Every season, God's got something fresh for you to go through. And that's where the development is. It's so rare that God kind of takes a season off where he's just gonna go ahead, Tiff, chill. Go ahead and chill. God doesn't chill. Okay, he's up there and he's working, or he's in there and he's working, and he's constantly helping us to grow and be developed through God's will. You can only have this if you surrender and you actually step into God's will with him by faith in trusting him and believing right? The belief, your belief system, you know, you have to be in a belief system that looks for what is God? Who is God? What would God's outcome look like, feel like? And this comes back. Your belief system changes and it gets deeper with God as you let him in. So how you believe in God, it's not just words anymore. It's not about like a thought. Oh, do I believe in God? Yeah. No, it's way beyond that. Like now when you have a relationship with God and you have faith in God and you trust God with like every part of your being, your belief system is with conviction because you know God now. Now you know him. So he's shared with you who he is. You know, God has a personality too. God has a sense of humor too. And he's quite funny once you get to know him and you let him in your heart and you start to understand who is God. What is God's heart like? You know, God is sensitive, you guys, very sensitive. God has feelings. You know, that's why when I think about like, here's a perfect example I want to share. What has God done for me in one of my surrenders? Well, I'll tell you, biggest one. At the foundation of who I am is my surrender around my drugs and alcohol addiction. Okay, that was massive for me. If I did not surrender all of that and put it down and give it to him, I would have ended up dead for sure. I was on the path to death. But because, you know, he intervened and I listened finally, and I surrendered my life to him, at the very core of me is this surrender piece that I've learned, okay, through my drugs and alcohol, where God got all up in my life and I can now see him in everything. I learned that early on through drugs and alcohol and how terrible it got. So today I understand that for me, surrender happening way back there at the point of me looking death in the face. For me, that's where it was at. For you, I don't know, different. But that's where I know at the core, my surrender comes from a place of me looking and staring at death. I was gonna die if I did not surrender. But, you know, it took a lot of years for me to realize that and really let God in to understand all he was ever trying to do was help me because he loved me. And it's not different for you. That's the thing though. God loves all of us and he wants to help all of us. And to not surrender is a life filled with a lot of suffering because you're operating from a place of mind, confusion, lost. You may run circles and cycles on yourself because the mind will do that. And, you know, he doesn't want that for you. He doesn't want that for you. He doesn't want it for me. He wants to give us a beautiful life. But inside a beautiful life, you will find the growth and the development piece. And growth and development with God is hard. You will do hard things. You will work hard. And it doesn't really stop. He likes to do hard work. And when you go with God and you give your life to God, prepare to do hard things because that's who he is. That's how our character is developed, through hard things, not the easy. No, easy looks for shortcut. God does not have shortcut for you, okay? You have to prepare yourself to do hard things. But one thing I can tell you through surrender is your life will be beautiful. And it will be in consciousness who you were meant to be, because God will pick you up and put you on the path he has designed for you. And things will begin to fall into place. So that is my hope for you guys. Go back, watch the other videos, understand the mind and its operation, understand the spirit in the heart and its operation. Okay, there are two things. You have a choice. And also taken this entire message on surrender, because without it, you're not going to get far. You're not going to get anywhere, in fact. You must surrender and turn your life, give God your life in order for him to get his hands all up in it. And all that means is that he wants a relationship with you. That's it. So I thank you guys so much for listening, and I want to remind you all again to go ahead and please like and subscribe to my channel. I appreciate your support, and I will be back with more. So thank you guys so much for listening.